Welcome to For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where we discuss amazing books written by talented authors. For Book Lovers Only Live Radio is a proud member of the Village Connector Media Network. If you love books, we have a home for you. Now time for your host and chief book lover, Rob Brown.
Hello, book lovers and book fans. Welcome to For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. My name is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover. I am so excited today to have Becki Willis fly in from the great state of Texas to be with us, to share with us her book, Tangible Spirits. But before we begin, I want to invite you to join our Book Lovers Club. It's completely free. It's really simple. Please visit www.forbookloversonly.com. That's www.forbookloversonly.com. We send out a newsletter to keep you posted about new books, new authors, special book buying opportunities, and occasionally we give out free prizes. So make sure that you join today. Again, that's www.forbookloversonly.com. Thank you so much. Now, our guest today is a very talented author from Texas who takes her inspiration from real life. She's an avid reader, writer, and history buff, creating believable characters and plausible situations that readers can identify with. Add a little danger and romance, and it's the perfect combination to keep you flipping the pages and wanting more. Becki, thank you so much for stopping by.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I love your site, by the way.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. We always like to get good reviews from people who stop by our site. I want to talk to you. You know, you and I met in Houston about 2 months ago at the Author Marketing Conference. Love the conversation that we had. Knew I had to have you on my radio show. How long have you been writing for?
My entire life, actually, but just professionally since 2013. Published my first book in November of 13.
How'd that feel to have your first book published?
Scary, very scary, but great. It was, a dream of mine that I'd always wanted, so didn't think it would ever come true, and it has. And so this Tangible Spirits is my 11th book.
Oh, great. All right. Well, let's get into Tangible Spirits. I'm really excited about this book. I've seen some of your other books, and just the covers are amazing. They're really engaging. I love the cover of this book. Give us a brief synopsis of the plot.
Well, first of all, it's set in a very real town of Jerome, Arizona. And it is it's a mystery book like all of mine, but it also is steeped with a lot of historical facts, local legends, and a little bit of a ghost story in it. And so the story behind the book, the theme of the book is that a reporter named Jera Stapleton, a lot of people don't know how to pronounce her name. It's short for Geraldine, but it's Jera.
Oh, okay.
And I actually knew a girl who was named that, so that's how I got the name of it. She's a reporter, and she is sent to Jerome to cover an impossible story about a once friendly ghost named Mac, who, after being like a guardian angel of the town for almost 100 years, suddenly he's being blamed for a rash of petty crime that's broken out in the community. And she doesn't believe in ghosts, so that's the first thing. She thinks it's just an impossible story, it's nothing but fluff. And so she reluctantly goes, and when she gets there, they have just discovered a dead body. Someone's been murdered in the middle of town. And believe it or not, they're blaming Mac for doing it. And so now she knows she has a real story to write, and not only that, but she doesn't believe in ghosts, so she knows good and well that Matt couldn't have done it. So she sets out to prove who did, and to try to write the book. The story of a lifetime. But she comes across a story that she never expected, and she ends up battling with: does she write the story of a lifetime and save her career, or does she kind of write a different story and save the legacy of a town? Because telling this secret would change the town drastically.
Now, I understand that the hotel where Jera stays plays a big part in this book. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's almost like a character in itself. The idea behind it was built as a private home, and the couple couldn't have children. So you have to understand that Jerome, being that it is a real town, it was a mining town. It was very rough and tumble. In fact, it was known as the wildest town in the West. And so prostitution was just a way of life. And so in my story, that part's true, but the part that I made up is that this woman, when she couldn't have children of her own, she decided to take in the children, prostitutes who found themselves in the family way. She would give them a home. So it was kind of like a halfway house for ladies of the night, soiled doves, as they called them back then. And there were really some blasting incidents that happened in the 30s. And in my story, some children were killed. And so the ghosts of those children still roam the halls, which is now a hotel, and it's called the Dove Hotel. And so they even have to play lullabies in the hallway at night to keep the children quiet and babies from crying. And a lot of the activity takes place in the hotel, so it does play a big part. So it's like a character in the book.
Oh, wow, that's really intriguing. I like that. And I know you're a history buff. How'd you go about conducting research for the background for the book?
Well, I went there. The very first time I went there, my husband and I, we travel a lot. And so whenever we go somewhere new, we ask if there's anything interesting about their area, particularly that would make a good book. And so we were staying in Peoria, and they said, oh, you've got to go to Jerome. It's a ghost town. And so I was thinking, tumbleweeds, broken down buildings, you know, Wild West story.
Right.
That's not the kind of ghost town they mean. They have a very strong belief in the spiritual world there in ghost. And so we went. We only had a little time to spend there, but there were some beautiful buildings that were just like the shell of a building. And they're falling down, but yet some of them had historical markers in front of them. And I just thought about that all summer long. That just, it kind of haunted me. Some of those buildings just really pulled to me. There was one beautiful old building, an old hotel on the main street, just the shell of a building, but it really spoke to me. And so I returned there in September with my daughter, and we stayed at a hotel that is haunted. It's actually it's what you see when you first come into town. It's a very odd town. It is propped on the side of a mountain at a very precarious angle. Looks like it could just come tumbling down at any moment. I think there's 1,700 linear feet between the very top and the very bottom. So
Wow.
it's literally stacked in layers. You have to kind of make your way up, and you see this one big building at the top from miles and miles away. And it was once a hospital, but is now a hotel. And the ghost busting shows, I'm saying it wrong, whichever one it is. But anyway, they go there quite often, and there's supposed to be one room that's particularly haunted. And so we stayed at that hotel, and we stayed in the sanatorium where they used to have to tie the patients into the chairs.
Yikes.
So we stayed there. We went on a ghost tour of the hotel. I did a lot of research from the internet, but you can't get really the feel without really going somewhere. So we went on their little ghost tour, and I asked lots of questions. And then they also have a ghost tour of the town. And we had a wonderful guide. She also does a historical tour, or she does a ghost one. And so she gave us kind of the best of both worlds. So she gave me a lot of historical facts and perspectives, and tossed in a few local legends and that kind of thing. And so that's how I did my research.
So you must be particularly excited to be here in the Washington, D.C. area, where you could probably pull 20, 30 novels out of just this city and Annapolis and Old Town Alexandria.
Yeah, not enough time.
Not enough time.
Probably another return trip.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that terrible? I'm going to have to come back.
Now, there are some landmarks in your book, the Sliding Jail, the Cuban Queen Bordello, and the Old Bartlett Hotel. They're real places.
Yes. The Bartlett Hotel is the one that I was referring to. It's right on the main street. It's a very small town, by the way, not a whole lot of streets. And this one, it's beautiful structure. You could tell that it had good architect, but it has no ceiling whatsoever. They have some real pretty wrought iron rails, and that in my book is where the murder took place, and so it plays a very big part in the murder in the book. But it's just a beautiful old building, and so I wanted to know more about it, and it does have a very interesting past. It has the plaque out front. But it was also, at one time, the town of Jerome had like over 1,500 residents, and 15,000 residents, and now it's like maybe 1,000. It's very, small. And it was a very lush hotel, but you can't tell it now. Because of the blast, the mining blast that they did, it did do some damage to the structures, and so their jail actually slid. I think it's like, I forgot how far, 200 feet from where it used to stand. It's now come to rest, totally different place, and it's all dilapidated and falling down, but yet it's historical, so they leave it. The Cuban Queen Bordello was also, it's a very spooky old building to look at, and but it was once, a fabulous building, very posh, and had, some famous people that came and visited there, and it had music and gambling and ladies and everything. So yeah, I mentioned a lot of different landmarks, and they're all there. And I have at least one reader who went there after reading my book because she wanted to see the place that I described.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I guess, the people of that town, love your books because you're, accurately portraying them. I think that it takes a special talent for an author to be able to kind of intertwine those historical facts into, a fiction book and make it work. Now, you said that there are a lot of historical facts intertwining your story. Tell us about Executive Order 6102.
Okay, well, I didn't know this until I went on the tour and learned this from my guide. But Franklin D. Roosevelt actually confiscated all the gold from the American people, and it was Executive Order 6102. It was after the Depression, and people had 14 days to turn in all their gold holdings, and they issued paper certificates for that. But of course, they weren't very valuable. And then once the government owned all the gold, they could, control the prices of it. So that really did happen. And so in my book, that plays a big part in it because Jerome was a mining town for copper. They actually pulled out, back in the day, over $1 million worth of copper from the mines. But a byproduct of that was also gold, silver, and zinc. And they didn't consider that very valuable because they were after the copper. And so, he wanted all the gold that was there too. And that plays a big part in the story, and you'll just have to read it to find out how.
Oh, I definitely want to read about that. I mean, I never learned about that in history class in high school.
No, that's not something they mention.
Yeah, they conveniently left that part out.
There was also some gold supposedly hidden by the Spanish conquistadors in Sycamore Canyon, which is there just about 20 miles away. And that is a well-documented fact, too. And people still go there today and search for it. And I've heard that people have actually died out in the desert trying to find it. And it's still hidden somewhere there in the mountains.
Wow, that's really amazing. And tell us about the Spanish expedition and the blast of 1938.
Okay, well, the Spanish expedition is that gold.
That is that gold.
Yes,
okay,
it is hidden, and because they were mining it actually way back then. And that was like in the 1700s, I think. And then they hid it, and the Indians didn't want people coming there, so the Indians kept hiding the entrance to the mine. And the very last time they did it, they hid it so well that no one can find the entrance to the mine.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, and then the blast, those actually took place, and that's how the jail slid, and a lot of the structures are damaged. You drive through town, and you see these buildings that are just absolutely in disrepair. There's one that it was the school, and you can see the staircase. It was an elementary school. The staircases are still there, but they're all crumbled on top of each other, and I think the blasting had made the foundations unstable. So, and that's why I spun that into that it had done damage and ruptured gas lines, and that's how the children had died at the Dove Hotel.
I love how your book is both suspenseful and educational at the same time. Tell me
that
about
way you don't feel guilty reading it.
Right. Tell me some of the local legends that you incorporated into the story.
I tried to do several. They told me a lot of different stories, and I think that just makes it richer when it's really based in truth. But one of my favorite ones is one that my guide had also told me. So because mining was a very dangerous work, there were a lot of blasting accidents and incidents. And so whenever one of the miners were killed, they offered the mining companies, there were two main mining companies there, and whenever one of their workers was killed, they gave the family a bereavement package of $300. And that way they could give them a proper burial. And, well, in Jerome, the surest way to make a living was to own your own bordello. And so they say that most people actually took that $300 and opened their own business, their own bordello, and and didn't do the proper burial. There is the local legend is that because the smelters and the kilns are running all the time, that they would dispose of the body inside the burning fires, and instead of giving them a proper burial. And so the legend is that over time, those ashes have sifted down and became into the product. And so in the end of the 1800s, they had so many fires there, and because it's up on the top of the mountain, and you couldn't fight the fire, and places, fire trucks couldn't get there, and at that time, I guess that was a wagon, couldn't get up the wagon. The side of the mountain. The town had burned 3 times in 1 year, and so they had made an ordinance that all buildings had to be made of brick, and so there was a legend that those ashes, got mingled in with some of the ironwork and brickwork and whatever, and that's why it is so haunted, because they are truly a part of the buildings. Their spirits are actually built into the buildings.
Now, Tangible Spirits, is it a standalone or is it a part of a series?
No, it is a standalone. There won't be another one of those.
Okay, but you do have another series of books called the Sisters Texas Mystery Series?
Yes, that's my most popular series that I have, and there's 5 books in that.
Okay. Tell us really quickly just about that, just really quickly.
It's about a woman who finds herself widowed and penniless at the age of 40, and she has to move home with her teenage children to live with her grandmother to make ends meet. And so she starts her own temporary business temporary agency called In a Pinch, and it gets her into all sorts of interesting situations and dangerous adventures.
Well, that sounds great. You have to come to our TV show and talk about
the
series of books, because I know my fans would love to learn a little bit more about that. So, and for all our fans who are watching and listening, they want to stay in touch with you, I want to make sure that we give them your contact information. Your email address is beckiwillis.ccp@gmail.com. Your website, your URL is www.beckiwillis.com. And for those who are listening who are not watching, it's Becki with a I, Becki, not with a Y, with an I. At Becki Willis 15 is your Twitter, and www.facebook.com/BeckiWillis.ccp. Becki, thank you so much for stopping by. We look forward to a lot of people telling us how much they love Tangible Spirits, and look forward to having you on our TV show.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for tuning in. The book is Tangible Spirits. It is available at www.forbookloversonly.com. That's www.forbookloversonly.com. My name is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover, and this is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Take care. I'll see you next time.